democracy, elections, do da da dee da boo boo ba ba ba. This is what we want. This is what we want, right? We want to believe in the sacrosanct illusion of some kind of noble and glorious progressive march forward of democracy in action and the people's voice and the people speak. I am so sick to every fiber in my being when I expose myself to the mainstream corporate press and political class and their theater of the absurd, their magic show that we all love to participate in and probably don't actually love to participate in, but we've been so beaten down and conditioned into no other alternative view, not exploring any other alternative view. And we've forgotten, like Bill Hicks said, right, in his great stand-up special at the end, I forget which one, where he says, it's just a ride. It's just a ride. All the money that we spend on war and bombing and all this kind of evil stuff, the war on drugs, prisons, we could put into creative exploration and education, and we could explore space, inner and outer, together. And before he says all that, he talks about how this is just a ride. But some of us have been on this ride for so long that we forget it's a ride. And we go, oh, it must be real. Look at my bank account. Go watch the Bill Hicks bit. It's great. But I would like to say that it's like a magic show. When you go to see a magician perform tricks at a magic show, you're in the audience. I mean, just a play, a theater. I like the example of the magic show though, because there's something about being tricked that we enjoy. There's something about it that when somebody pulls off a magic trick that we go, oh my God, how did they do that? Chris Angel, Mind Freak. Remember that show? He did some crazy shit. And it's like, all right, yeah, this is entertaining. Why? Because he's a character. He's a personality. He's got a look, a feel, an energy, an aura to him. Something's happening here. There's some kind of trickery happening, and we appreciate the skills of the person who is leading us in that trickery. And so we go to Fantasyland and we suspend our disbelief so that we may be astonished and dazzled and entertained. And we've been at this theater for such a long time, like Bill Hicks says, we forget that we're in a theater. But that's what we're in. We're in a theater. And we're biting the hook time and time again. Because the show is so dazzling. And it plays on our emotions and our trigger points. And it makes us go, oh my God, this guy's such an idiot. Oh my God, this person can't see what I'm seeing. Holy shit, this person, no wonder why this country is in such shape that it is. Oh, these people are just so stupid. Oh, these Trump people, these backwards hicks, these idiots, they don't know anything. They don't know shit. They're all dumb. They're all stupid. They're all ignorant. They're all assholes. Oh, these people on the left, they're all cucks. They're all, fucking just terrible, awful, cancel, social justice, blind idiot, whatever. And what do we have right now? We have the holy sacred state, and all of its crusaders enmeshed in this in a holy war. As TK Coleman said on my show, and I've often made the point too, that this is a religious kind of fervor. This is religion. I didn't vote. I've never voted in a presidential election for a president. I don't believe in it. I believe that whatever we give our energy and attention to just keeps perpetuating that thing. The more we keep buying snacks and refreshments in the lobby of the theater that we're in, the more that we're going to forget that there's even an outside world filled with diversity and possibilities and novelty and radical experimentation. But just like Marty McFly in Back to the Future, when he goes back to 1955 and he's at the, what is it, the seashell under the sea, enchanted under the sea dance or whatever it's called. And he plays that Van Halen riff and the whole crowd just goes silent. And everybody's staring at him. They're just stunned. They're bewildered. They're confused. They're slightly irritated. They don't understand. They can't comprehend what he just did with that guitar. And Marty just like looks at them and then speaks in the microphone and says, well, I guess you're not ready for that, but your kids are going to love it. And then the guy takes the guitar from him and kind of looks at him and looks at the guitar with his brows furrowed, just like, what the hell was that shit? And that's exactly the kind of situation that I feel like that we're in this world that I've felt that we've been in for a very long time, where the way that I see things and that I see the world is not the way that the most, the majority of people see things. That what we talk about here on this show is very radical and fringe and out of the purview and the consciousness. It's almost like we're speaking a foreign language, and people just aren't prepared. They're not capable or equipped of understanding that kind of a language because it's like an alien language. I watched the movie Arrival recently, and it was amazing because they're interacting with this alien species that had come to Earth, and the way in which they speak, the way they communicate their language, by reading and coming in contact with their language and learning their language and speaking their language, it alters your brain and you begin to see reality as they see it. And in this instance, these aliens, they have a different understanding of reality because they have a different understanding of what time is and how time plays out. And their language is all circular, and it's very, everything is happening at the same time kind of thing. It's really, really cool. And I know that there's been, I think, studies about this too. When you speak a foreign language, that you sort of become this other personality, that your brain actually sort of reorganizes, that you reorganize and start thinking like if you were in a Spanish-speaking country, like you're in Peru for an extended period of time. When I was there, I was more by attempting to speak the language and learn the language, it also shifted my sort of outlook and worldview, my perception, my understanding of things. And I bet it occurs more dramatically in these studies that they've done, which I'm not quite sure of, but I know I've heard of something like that. And it seems to just make sense that you really just inhabit this other kind of identity form. And that's really powerful. That's powerful shit. That's powerful shit. Like, we are really capable, powerful beings. And this is what for lack of a better word, the elites in our world know. And as I talk about on the show often, when I say when I'm talking about the elites, I'm talking not just about the people that occupy those places, but the automatic creation of these institutions, the sort of the autopilot mechanism that's on, that sets the game rules, that leads this train in motion. And, people that want to get on the train just are the ones that are occupying it. But the train keeps going, keeps moving. The game is just there, and everybody's just playing it. And again, it's like some people forget that it's just a ride and it's just a game. It's just a magic show or just, this thing. And it's just this autopilot thing. I was listening to a great podcast episode before by Pete Quinones, Free Man Beyond the Wall is his podcast, and he was talking to someone, and they brought up the hive mind, the bees, how the bees don't, if you asked each individual one what their role was, what they were doing, it's just a thing. Even like the queen is playing a role. He used the word NCP, non-character player. And I guess that's a pretty popular term in the internet world and the gaming world. I guess I've been saying a similar thing as well. And I know like Chris Ryan and Daniel Pinchbeck and others, Charles Eisenstein, have talked about before as well, is that these institutions are like, these non-human entities, these like alien life forms. I know, as Chris has mentioned that, and that's a difficult thing to sort of connect with people and land in their minds, that it's like that this system just keeps going and keeps expanding and growing and figuring out new ways that it can stay on the track. And I'd like to believe that we function differently, that we have the opportunity to step outside and get the bird's eye view of the bee's nest and go, oh, okay, cool, we're in like a net like this. And I think I mentioned this on the last podcast. So the last Solocast that I did, which was called The Election, which was just my predictions for how it was going to play out. And it's really interesting what happened and the response to it and everything. And it's not over. And it's really, really, it's interesting because when you understand how, I think one of the keys to sort of, I guess, taking a clue to pay attention a little bit more to what's going on is how things are presented and when they're presented and how they're molded and shaped and how they're written, how these, how stories are crafted and how they are appealing and get latched onto and becomes the general consensus of belief and of truth. And if there's any questioning of that, it's not only met with disagreement, but it's tied up emotionally, and it's also comes with this sort of arrogant. I saw a word someone used the other day called coincidence theorist, like that. It's just like, oh, you're just being ridiculous. It's just, that's not the way it is. This is just random, and of course, these things happen, and but it's not only that. It's because we're afraid so much that we're willing to sort of accept what the largest group is saying. We live in this culture of wanting to be validated, wanting to belong, wanting to be a part of something, and the instinct to go against the grain, no matter in what camp you're in, right? It's the same thing. The people on the left, the people on the right, the people, just anybody that attaches to a particular team and just defaults to that team and just assumes that side is, telling the truth and, has the facts and is correct about things. But it goes further than that, because it goes into this biological need for us to be a part of something, be a part of a community, be accepted by others. And when there's an understanding, like, I don't ever watch the news so much, like ever. I mean, I got rid of television. I haven't had like an actual screen television since 2010 or 2011. With the exception of maybe like a couple years where I had one, but it was just a smart TV or, no cable. I haven't had cable since 2010. I haven't had cable television since 2010. And on my old show, Part of the Problem, one of the things that Dave and I used to do was, and Dave did it really well, and he could do it more than I could. I can't hang out in that toxic cesspool for too long. At least I wasn't capable enough at those points, nor would I want to subject myself to those that too much now. But it gives you if you have the eye to see, it gives you a window into where, like, what they're trying to sell, how they're, the language that they use, the tone that they use, the way that they frame things. For example, even on Fox News, of course, is not is one of the biggest perpetrators of this. But the woman on Fox News is like, and in Oregon, they decriminalized all drug possession, including cocaine and heroin. So already, just by the way that they're framing it, the way they're presenting it, the tone that they're using, they're implying a particular way in which we should feel about it, right? And so, I oftentimes will not necessarily communicate a lot of the details of this kind of stuff that I'm talking about, and that I'm going to get into even more. But I'll try and communicate it as much as I feel is necessary. And the reason for that is, anytime you show up with supposed evidence, truth, facts, figures, this is how it really, the Democrats did this, the Republicans did this, just using that as an example, because I feel like that's an easy example, right? But it's, you just get into that game of like tit for tat, back and forth, and that develops that team rivalry, and our side gets a point and their side gets a point, and it's deeper than that, and it's useful for us to play that game for the agenda setters. Right. And so, a lot of this stuff, this doesn't get talked about enough, as far as I'm concerned, because there's a deeper level to this reality. And to ignore that is to be ignorant. And to be ignorant, maybe can have some temporary pleasures and benefits, but in my opinion, it's much more nourishing and fulfilling and satisfying to walk into realms of uncertainty, realms of darkness. For example, a lot of what the people on the right, and especially like the Q type people, but it's even more than that. Even the people that are now getting lumped into like conspirituality people on the left, that have this story that there's this like satanic pedophile cult and everybody in the government's involved, and it's this elite, thing in Hollywood and everything. It's like, okay, well, that just makes that the truth of that, when there's the kernel of truth that gets blown up to this like massive level as this like totalizing force, then it becomes this sort of holy crusade. And some people would say, yeah, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with the holy crusade. I'm okay with a holy crusade if it involves saving children and everything. And it's like, yeah, of course. But it also doesn't allow an invitation to people who might be repelled by the sort of delivery of the content, and not only the delivery of the content, of course, the material of the content, right? So, through my sort of political, world awakening or whatever you want to call it, so I started getting interested in this and exploring this stuff. There's a tendency to grab on to things along the way. It's like a scavenger hunt, and you're running along and you're collecting the prizes and the pieces, and you're getting really excited with everyone that you collect and celebrating as if you've won because you found one thing. And that's how it's felt a little bit. It's like, oh, I get it. It's like the government is corrupt and people are doing it's the Federal Reserve and it's this and it's that. And then you start going even further, and it's like, okay, well, what about occult secret societies, and JFK assassination, and the formation of the CIA, and Allen Dulles, and the further back, like the war on drugs, and Harry Anslinger, and reefer madness, and this stuff and that stuff, and you could drive yourself mad, first of all, going through all of this stuff all the time. You could also get lost in what I'm explaining and being like, okay, this is the thing. This is the thing. This is the thing that we have to care about or be concerned about. And there's a lot of things that are dark and that are really fucked up and bad. And I think that just having the ability to choose to go into our own darkness is the ticket, is the key, because many of us in our culture just push away anything, bad feelings, things that make us feel bad, right? Just narrow it down to that. Things that make us feel bad. We don't want to feel bad ever. For a long time in our culture, it was seen as weakness, stigma. It still is to a certain, it still is. Although we're chipping away, where more and more people are able to talk about how they feel, but really, it is the thing that blocks us from ourselves, that allows for other stories to be inserted in there. And oftentimes, those other stories are stories of scarcity, of fear, of lack, of but just enough, just the sort of approved ones to move the sort of agendas and plans and incentives and interests forward. And most of us don't know about that, because that's not what the agenda setting media, corporate, press, political, elite, establishment types want us to have access to. As the fantastic Edward Bernays quote goes, and Bernays was the nephew of Sigmund Freud. And I believe I've posted about this, and I've read this before, but it's so good, because it really does describe the environment that we live in, the terrain in which we occupy. Those who manipulate the unseen mechanism of society constitute an invisible government, which is the true ruling power of our country. We are governed, our minds molded, our tastes formed, our ideas suggested, largely by men we have never heard of. In almost every act of our lives, whether in the sphere of politics or business, in our social conduct or our ethical thinking, we are dominated by the relatively small number of people who understand the mental processes and social patterns of the masses. Right? Think like big tech, media. It is they who pull the wires that control the public mind. That's Edward Bernays from his book Propaganda, 1923, I think. So I've talked about this before, and I did mention the interests that shape and guide and mold. And I just want to talk a little bit about Noam Chomsky's work with manufacturing consent and necessary illusions. So, when you have these major media companies that own everything, he asks, so what kind of view would you expect to come out of this? You get a picture of the world that satisfies the needs and interests of the buyers and sellers of the product. And we know with social media that they're not selling anything, and it doesn't cost anything to join Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We are the product. And the ads that run on there. If you build it, they will come. If you have this massive platform and it's free, you need a way to make money, and that's why it's filled with advertising. So what we get with the amazing open and free World Wide Web is now this narrowing down. This once opportunity for an expanded reality now is being attempted to be narrowed down into the approved messaging, which really defies the idea of a voluntary, spontaneous, free speech, free association kind of ethos. And people will say, well, we have to prevent the spread of fake news, right? Like the social dilemma put forward. And what was their suggestions? Well, one of them was to, take some ownership and rearrange your apps and maybe consider leaving some of these platforms. And another one was, well, we need the government to regulate it, as if the government has some kind of magical ability that will prevent the primal urges, desires of human nature. That these, and it's tricky when you say human nature. I guess I mean the kind of human nature that happens when we have to adapt to these monolithic gatekeepers. But we're not just victims. We need to trust the audience, as I think they would say in filmmaking. Hey, that's a little too heavy-handed. That's a little too heavy on the nose. Give the audience some credit. Trust their intelligence. And, what we have is a world that has been molded and shaped in a particular kind of way to create a lot of distrust, to create a lot of otherizing and totalizing of groups and peoples. And we need to protect you. We need to come in and make sure that you're not being ripped off, that you're being treated fairly. And while I do agree with that kind of intention is good, as the famous saying by Hayek goes, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. It's almost like when they tell you if somebody, I forget what the exact example is, but someone's, got into a car accident or something, and you go there and you see the wreckage, not to move them, even though your intentions are good. It's, I want to help this person. I want to remove them from harm's way. That there could be, you could pull on something and they can, that you can inflict some kind of unintentioned harm or damage could come. And I forget what the exact example is. I don't know if it's, but I know I've heard that before. However, that there's also the bystander effect, right? And I think we even saw this kind of thing play out specifically in the case of the George Floyd. I mean, granted, there were police officers there, so it's like, well, what are you supposed to do? Just fight the cops? Like, I don't know if that's the answer, but we have seen a lot of instances happen where something happens and people just don't do anything. And I think it's because there's an assumption that someone else is going to do something. Someone else is going to take care of it. And we definitely live in a world right now where the majority of us are kind of hoping that someone is going to do something to get us to a better version of this reality. But I think that someone is us. I think it's us. We have to be willing participants in creating the kind of reality that we want. And by, direct action, not outsourcing our trust, our truth, our faith. But this is very old. This kind of behavior is extremely, extremely old. We have a biological need to conform to survive, to adapt to survive. And when we feel this pressure upon us in order to do these things, that it is easier to conform and adapt, to go along, to get along. And it's not necessarily that that's bad. I feel like I said that weird. It's not bad. It ain't so bad, y'all. This is going to be the podcast from now on. I'm just going to do this guy. This is me. This is the podcast from now on. Hey, y'all. Welcome to Mikeadelic. Shit's pretty fucking great, ain't it? It's not bad. It's pretty groovy. And then just that for 2 hours. Which is a little bit of like a tongue-in-cheek poke at people who live in like a positivity bubble. Because, things are amazing. It's such a gift to be alive. That doesn't negate the fact that there is challenging, dark things that we should be aware of in order to be prepared to make the best choices for ourselves, our loved ones, our families, the people that we care about. Because at the beginning of the day, that's really the most important thing. It's not about, changing the world. It's not about convincing people that you're right. I recently had I want to get back to the Noam Chomsky part, but I know I'm going off on a tangent, but I'm going to get back to that. So let's table that. We'll circle back. They always talk like that in sales, and I used to work in sales. Like, hey, just calling to check in, see if we could circle back up on that proposal. Kind of, sort of triangulate a strategy. They talk in shapes, like, just square things up with everyone. And oh, okay, yeah. Well, we'll table that for now. We just don't have the bandwidth. I wonder if people still talk like that. Remember, people like write an email. They're like, "Hope you're well." Do you? Do you really hope I'm well? Hope all is well. Take care. Just wanted to check in, and there's so many like unnecessary fluffery in this facade of like niceties and civility over truth and transparency. Hey, I was just checking in to see if you would be requiring any possible extensions to the services that we could offer and provide at your given convenience. The manufacturing of our equipment, whatever. I don't know what I'm talking about anymore, but you get the point. But I recently had a very profound experience with some fun guys. And wow, I mean, the way in which we can explain and rationalize and logic, it's amazing. It's amazing. The way that we can connect dots to believe things is amazing, and we desperately want to, all of us, I believe, desperately want to believe or feel the need to believe in something bigger, greater than ourselves. It's kind of a sad story if you're one of those, like, the new atheist type people or whatever. I don't even know if that's a thing anymore, but it's just like, I don't know, we're just these like, we're just these animals, and we can think, and then, when we die, we just that's it. It's just, it's done. There's nothing else beyond. And anybody that's taken a psychedelic seems to come to different kinds of conclusions and beliefs. Anybody that has devoted themselves to religions, and as I mentioned, the religion of the state. The state and the corporate press, the mouthpiece of the establishment, tell us what to buy. Buy your drugs, fight your wars, hate each other for being different. Put those logs on the flames, burn those heretics now. Burn them now, burn them now. I mean, that we have not changed so much as a mass. We still operate in religion and heresy and judgment and our cleverness, how clever we are, how smart of a point I can make. Oh my God, this person thinks that? Well, let me show them. Let me tell them. And so I'm trying to sit with this as a way to adapt and change the way that I communicate. Because I have beliefs, and I'm not above these things. And me even saying this very thing right now could also be coming from a small place that's trying to be above it all, to be outside of it all, to not pick a side, not pick a team, to look to see the advanced perspective that it is. Well, it's all just a big game, so who really cares? Or, well, I've figured it out, and the truth of figuring it all out means that we're never going to figure it out. Oh, I know the correct perspective, and the correct perspective is that I don't know anything, and see how clever that is. It's like that Bill Hicks bit where he talks about the, if you're in marketing or sales. I love Bill Hicks, by the way. I brought him up twice now. If you're in marketing or sales, kill yourself. No, seriously, kill yourself. This isn't a joke. And he goes on to berate the audience and tell them, if you're in marketing sales, I hate you, you're demons from hell. And people are laughing, and he's like, oh, I see what he's doing. He's like, all the marketing and sales people in the audience are going, oh, I see what he's doing. He's going for that anti-marketing dollar. That's a good dollar. And then he goes on and he gives more examples. He's like, no, I'm not. I'm not going for that, you scum. And then they're like, oh, the righteous indignation dollar. That's a good dollar to go after. That's a good strategy. That's a good marketing tactic. And of course, we see it. We actually have seen that in the change of advertising and marketing, where the commercials of old seem really cheesy and heavy-handed and goofy, Like, the best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup. That's right, folks. If you want to start your day with a good morning, you got to get a cup of Folgers. And if you don't, you're going to die alone with 19,000 cats peeing on your corpse. Folgers in your cup. Get some. Or whatever it is, those goofy old commercials. And, through marketing and advertising, in order to adapt and change with the culture, there has to be this kind of influencer type advertising and marketing. Even me on this show, when I talk, it's like, man, I actually have a good product that I'm happy about, but it's like, when I listen to other podcasts and I hear people talking about products, I don't know if they really endorse it. They can tell me that they really endorse it. They can tell me that they really love it. But see how it's changed? It has to be this sort, and even Instagram ads, it's this casual, hey guys, yo, what's up? This shit's really cool. You should check it out. It's and I'm not saying that this is good or bad. I'm just saying, notice how we have to change and adapt the way that we communicate. And especially the way that I communicate about the things that I see. And how do I communicate these things that I see to those who are not looking at the same kinds of things or don't see it in the same kinds of ways? And it's is my job supposed to be to try and persuade, to try and convince, to try and convert? Well, if that's the case, then aren't I just developing a new religion of my own? Mikeadelic. Oh, Mikeadelic cult. I mean, it would be cool to have a cool cult. I actually had an idea of maybe starting a cult that just plays into all the cult tropes and just, I guess it would be something like Discordianism. Raw. The great Robert Anton Wilson. Why do I talk about this stuff? Why do I care? Hey, this is Mikeadelic. Why aren't you talking about psychedelics? Why aren't you talking about the wins that we had in the States for psychedelic therapy and treatment and healing and all that stuff? I don't know. Because there's other podcasts that talk about that stuff, and they're great ones. But I'm more interested in, once we have seen another perspective or another way, then what do we do? Once we've gotten on the path of healing and spiritual development, then where do we go? What's worth it? What fight or what circle should we enter? I mean, I guess there's all kinds of options. We could choose to enter fights. We could choose to enter, campfires. We can choose to enter parties. There's a lot of people that go down the psychedelic spiritual consciousness path and wind up feeling very comfortable in a bubble of people that all validate their, that sounds harsh, but validate their hedonism. Not that there's anything wrong with hedonism. Again, maybe I should change the name of this podcast to It's Neither Good Nor Bad. And I think that's really where the change is coming within me, which is like trying to facilitate the flow of things in a better way, trying to step out of my own way to allow for magic to unfold, trying to be aware of all of my cleverness, all of my trickery, all of my self-deceptions, all of the ways in which I'm listening to somebody else speak, but really I'm just waiting to make the greatest point ever and blow their mind with like an amazing quote from this great book that I read or something like that. And that's just the ego game. That's just the materialistic, egoic, self-flagellation, sniffing, masturbation game. And you can get into that game with other people too. And you could sit around a whole cerebral circle jerk. But it's like, where does that, how does that make the world a better place? I guess you could say it inspires other people, gets people to think about things, things like that. But once we have the information, once we're able to hold it all, and that's really, I guess, what I'm trying to get at here is to really try and move my life forward in a particular direction where I'm not getting infected by the toxicity of the game in which I choose no longer to play. So I recently deleted my Twitter app off my phone. I think that was a big help because that's an arena that you can enter. And I left that arena and I chose to go back to that arena. And it was fun for a little while, but I noticed that I started to be infected by the virus of that particular set of beliefs, and that not beliefs, but the particular kind of energy that's on that platform, and the sort of way that one functions within that platform, and how it can it was seeping into me, and I start participating more. And by participating more, I'm perpetuating it more. So I'm like, okay, maybe I could step away. Maybe I could step away from that. Sometimes I wonder what I should talk about, but oftentimes I just feel like I'm pulling this from somewhere. If you want to, and I always shy away from terms like to say with certainty, like I'm channeling this, guys. This is a channeled thing. I mean, I could say that. Every solo cast I've ever done has just been me turning on the microphone and just talking with no preparation or no, just having an idea of what I want to talk about. And I mean, not to say hey, how, again, it's not about this look at how great I am kind of thing. And maybe there's a part of me that thinks that way, right? When I see other people sort of owning a particular modality or something, a particular suit or function, people wearing a particular Halloween costume, and me going yeah, but you're just wearing a costume. Come on, you know? So I don't know. I suppose that I've always been a little bit just not interested in playing particular roles. And, you know, it's entirely possible that I'm Joe Rogan by saying entirely possible. It's entirely possible that the people, there's many people who don't recognize that they're playing a role, that they're like LARPing, you know, live action role playing, that they're like a witch, or that they're, you know, a channeler or something like that. But that is what is happening. And, you know, we get so caught up in this sort of like true and false dichotomy, like this separation of, well, this is true and this is false. And we get so caught up in, you know, the sort of, what do I want to say? We get caught up in this thing, right? And I think there's a different way to approach it, or the different way to look at it. And the way that I look at it is that we are just all participating in a great creation, a giant mural, and choosing to show up in a costume with paint and painted in a funky way, or painted in a very boring way, whatever, painted in our own ways. And a lot of us will be like so focused in on the section of this giant mural that we're painting, and we're like, this is the mural, this is the thing, this is the best part, this is the entirety of it, and forgetting to look at everybody else who's contributing and painting as well. Or, you know, that I am this thing that I'm painting, I am it, rather than sort of separating it and just being like, well, I am contributing to a particular portion of this painting right now. You know, it's putting on a costume. We're always putting on costumes. We put on costumes every time that we show up in an environment that has a different energetic charge than the energetic charge that is internal to our, you know, human combustion system. Combustion, or the internal charge of our human vehicle. You know, we have to be sort of chameleon-like in a way, to augment and adapt to changing game rules, right? So, for example, I mean, like, one of them is you don't walk outside of your house naked, get in your car, and go to the supermarket. You just don't do that. That's just a sort of a general consensus social norm agreement that we're like, yeah, let's all agree to hold that energetic code in place. And that energetic code is, of course, backed by the force and coercion of the state, right? Which is like, we don't really need that. We definitely need codes and agreements, but we don't need people to be, we don't necessarily always need these agreements to be backed by a harsh, cruel, cold, one ring to rule them all blanket set of rules for everyone, right? So essentially what I'm getting at here is, when we are interacting with others in the world, which I'm sure that we do every day, no matter if it's small or large, we're always coming into different beliefs, different stories, different realities. And how do we navigate those best? How do we not go cold or set ourselves and everyone else ablaze and burn the whole thing down? How can we stay nice and toasty and warm and nice and melty and gooey right in the center, to be fluid and to facilitate flow and allow for magic to appear and allow for creative collaboration and compassionate curiosity to spread? I mean, sure, everybody can do their own individual work. Of course, we can read books like Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. We can attend courses and lectures and things like that. And there's traps to that. Everywhere you go, there's trap doors, because you can then just be addicted to the work, addicted to the improvement, addicted to the knowledge. Oh my God, I've read so much about this. I know so much about this. So therefore I am I'm in a camp that puts me automatically in my mind in a position of superiority to you peons who don't know. And that's where a lot of fighting and shouting down comes from, is this, I guess, unwillingness to, invite a KKK member to dinner, as Daryl Davis does in Accidental Courtesy, the documentary, I believe, available on Amazon Prime, where Daryl Davis, this black musician, befriends all these KKK members accidentally, and they wind up liking him so much and developing a strong bond and a strong friendship that they leave the KKK and they give up their robes, and in some cases give them to him so that he takes them away from them, or not takes them away, but he gets to keep them. And I love that film because he communicates from a place of how can you hate me if you don't even know me? How can any of us have such strong held opinions, beliefs, truths, facts, if we don't allow for our humanity to come through and invite other people's humanity to come through? Who cares? Like Ben Shapiro. I'm sorry, facts don't care about your feelings. If you're born a woman, you're a woman. If you're born a man, you're a man. That's just genetically, it's biology, it's science. Facts don't care about how you feel. It's like, dude, shut up. Like, you're being annoying. However, he is allowed to express his beliefs. So again, it's like we're not all victims here. Just because there's a charismatic leader who is, debating and smacking down with facts and figures, charts and graphs and logic and reason, it doesn't mean that we're just victims to this kind of personality. However, just like in cults, if just like when you see people getting involved, like let's say Q, for example, QAnon, right? I mean, they're a religion. They're like the Knights Templar. I mean, I don't want to say that because then they're going to be like, yeah, hell yeah, we're like the Knights Templar. That's fucking cool as fuck. It's like, no, it's the same religious fervor that it's like we're doing this for the greater good, and there's a larger mission here, and if you're not on board, well, then you're evil, or fuck you, or you don't get it, or you're part of the problem, or these kinds of things. And it's like we're never going to get out of this like religiosity. I mean, Rick and Morty did it great when they had the planet of the hive mind, Unity. And it was just such a brilliant episode because as soon as the hive mind broke, then the two, like some guy, I guess it's so hilarious. One guy's like, they have like pointy nipples and the other guy has like circular ones and they're like diamonds or whatever. And he's like, screw you, you pointy nipple like freaks. Circular nipples are the only ones that will rule. And it's like, this is how we operate, right? So it's like, what do we do? Well, I guess if this is a simulation and we needed to like install a code to update the system, we can update the system by plugging ourselves in as these pieces of code that function to help eradicate that virus. Right? Like, oh, there's a major malfunction in Portland. Okay, we need like different people that have different codes programmed into that system so that we can help de-escalate, diffuse, think of new and creative ways other than war, violence, domination, right? Even the very idea of resisting tyranny, fighting against oppression. I think it was Mother Teresa that said, I'll never go to an anti-war movement, but I will go to a pro-peace movement. And I only really like that if you actually have understood the anti-position first and then move into the pro position. I think that having that good understanding of the sort of darker, heavier emotions that come up within us when we are facing these great, big, horrible sorts of ideas and disasters and things, really digging into that and really allowing ourselves to allow whatever emotions come up from interfacing with these kinds of darker shadow kinds of things, and then deciding to move and channel that and let that flow into something that is that is productive, that is for coming together, that is for de-escalation, that is for building bridges, that is for really truly understanding all sides and other people's ideas. And again, I'm not talking about this like I fucking know. I'm practicing this myself. And it's not easy because my default nature, and I would argue that most of our default natures, is to just fucking worry about ourselves and like the people that we love that are that we're closest to in our lives. But I allow myself to get infected by the world. And that doesn't do any good because it warps, it twists, it changes my brain and my conception of reality and what's actually most important. As the great Tim Dillon said on Joe Rogan's, he's like, most people just want to get fucked up and go out on the lake, and have a good day and grill. And, what are you going to do? Sit at home and worry about what DARPA's doing? It's like, no, you gotta live your life. We need to enjoy our lives as well. And many of us are, right? And some of the ways that we enjoy our lives for many of us is to just ignore all that stuff and just kind of, pay attention to the headlines, the buzzwords, the mantras, the magic, the spells, right? So let's talk about the spells that are cast by the priest class of our world in the new holy crusade for truth that we find ourselves in. So as Noam Chomsky, again, back to the Noam Chomsky point, the agenda-setting media, right? They set the agenda that drives the interest and satisfies the needs of the people that are the buyers and sellers of this particular kind of arrangement, right? So advertisers, government, corporations, banks, funding, these sorts of things. But it is a replication of the world. It's not the real world. I believe Jean Baudrillard would call this the simulacra. I might be wrong about that. But it's a world that is tailored to fit the interests of powerful people whose pictures and images satisfies the sellers of their products and services. The mainstream media, corporate press, social media is now mainstream media. They are the agenda-setting media. They are the ones that are in bed with the state. They shape and control the thoughts and opinions. They shape and control the narrative. They dominate reality and reality creation. And they do it through language, graphics, motion, time. They are the masters of time. They play their news 24/7, 365, and this is a particular kind of, code that's running in this matrix. And the code is, pump this message out, infect as many people as possible, shape the way that they think, condition them to believe that certain things are, that certain things are just the way it is, set in stone, that of course, this is the way it is. So they shape and condition that way. And Noam Chomsky says that this is a necessity in order to marginalize and control the public in a democratic society. In a democratic society, in order to have this rule of elite, that you need necessary illusions in order to get everybody on board. So, we need to be allowed to express ourselves and criticize and experiment freely to actually know who we are really, and not just letting somebody else condition us and infect us to then program us and inform us of what we are and how we should think. And again, it's very, very hard because it's even me right now not being exposed to cable news or the news, or not even being on Twitter for 2 days. I still feel it in the air. I still hear it from people's mouths in passing or in direct interactions. The parroting of empty platitudes and buzzwords and catchy slogans and, carefully crafted, curated, and manipulated content. These are information, like programmed information, coded information that is designed like an art specifically to interface with the mass public mind. And, just like you're fishing with a big net, you're not going to catch every fish in the ocean, but damn, there's a lot of fish that are caught, and everybody's caught in their own little nets, and then there's a large one. So then there's a quote I wrote down here from Walter Lippmann, I think is his name. It says, "The manufacture of consent is a revolution in the practice of democracy. What it amounts to is a technique of control, and it was useful and necessary because of the common interests. The general concerns of most people elude public opinion. The public just isn't up for dealing with them, and instead they would belong to a special class, the specialized class, the so-called experts of the agenda setters," which is the opposite of democracy. But like I said, we need these necessary illusions, or they need these necessary illusions. If you want to understand how this society functions, just look at who's really in charge making the decisions, and not just the front-facing people that we're told, but what are their incentives? What is their motivation, right? So this video I saw the other day posted by the royal family on YouTube is announcing the Great Reset. And it's it's from Davos, the World Economic Forum, right? They're talking about this thing called the Great Reset. And it's a stunning video, and it's the way that it's designed, right? Again, it's like if you understand persuasion, influence, marketing, advertising, magic, symbolism, language, you would look at this video with a different set of eyes than maybe just kind of an ordinary bloke. An ordinary bloke. So it's like, why, right? On the surface level, it's like, hey, this looks good. Yeah, climate change is a real problem, and it looks like that the World Economic Forum is going to do something about it with the Great Reset. Sounds good. Cool. That sounds good. Yeah. But if you look closer at it, it's like, why? Why? Is Prince Charles, who's narrating the video, is he crying in his castle at night because of the health of the planet and the well-being of the people? You know, when did this like idea that royalty cares about people come from in our modern time? I believe it came from this illusion that democracy actually gives power to people. So we're all trapped in this facade that we live in these like modern times, and you know, modern people have power and we have a voice, and you know, as long as we participate in the system that we can change things. And I would argue no, by participating in the system, all we do is reinforce that system. We feed that system. We give energy to that system. We send a signal. We cast a vote that says, yes, I support this as an idea, as a concept, as an institution. I pay homage and respect to the authority, to this temple, to this priest class by validating its existence, to claim authoritarian rule over our lives, to say we support the system over the people. And it's this trick, right? Like I talked about at the beginning, it's this magic show. It's look at the hot assistant and don't look over here at the sleight of hand. Be dazzled, be wowed. And we want to be dazzled, and we want to be wowed, and we want to believe, and we love, you know, Game of Thrones and, you know, these shows about like royalty, and I don't know, what's the other one? The fucking, you know, whatever. It's queens and kings, and we want this, like we like this. Everybody's obsessed with like the Prince, whatever the hell, and the Katie something or other. I don't even know their fucking names. The you know who I'm talking about. The Meghan Merkel and the Prince guy. It's what is she wearing, and what is she, and Hollywood and the way that they operate, and the state, and it's like this whole like the sacred and the traditional and the values and the honor and the integrity and the it's the church. It's the same thing as walking into that church. They're inducing an experience. They're creating a particular set of trigger points inside of us to feel a certain way, to buy a particular kind of narrative. And again, it's like it's not like there's anything necessarily wrong with that. It's not like there's some evil, nefarious plot to trick people into believing in God or something. It's just like when you walk into a church that's like epic, like, I don't know, St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York or something, it's like, wow, this is like magnificent. And art and aesthetics and the magnificent is a way of transmuting or, distilling down to us the divinity, the transcendental, the liminal. Like, we want to be connected with that. So when we enter into that situation, you know, the sort of the way that the environment is set up, and the tones and the smells and the art and the glass and the language and the regal and the royal and the holy, like that all speaks to us, just like a great piece of art or a great piece of music speaks to us. It communicates something to us that's beyond our own sort of ability to muster that up internally. And it's a signal that's being sent to us that says, you know, there is something bigger, there is something larger, there is this mystery, there is this greatness. And so with things like the Great Reset, with things like the election, the voting process, the structure of democracy, the game rules, the program code, the way that the media operates, it's all set with these particular kinds of conditions in order to elicit a particular kind of response. So something that's pure and holy and sacred, like having, let's say, like having a direct experience with the divine by, I don't know, eating 20 grams of mushrooms and going directly to the center of God's face, going right up God's anus into the center of his chest, and living there for a little bit and being like, holy shit, this feels so real. So, these corporations that are driven by money, power, resources over people and people's happiness and people's genuine well-being, this software code that is on this automatic pilot perverse incentive system just hijacks these pure things, these pure ideas. David Nichols says this really well when he talks about the commodification of the sacred. It's taking the things that's real and pure and raw and special and sacred and just making them, part of the game, enforcing the story of separation between us and the world even further and further, because of course, the more division there is, the easier it is to rule over people. The easier it is to insert yourself in there and say, I am your solution. I am your savior. I am your salvation. I will set you free, whether it's an individual or whether it's an institution or whether it's a product or a service. This is the way. And I'm pretty sure that no matter what it is, whenever we get stagnant in a particular kind of foxhole, a particular camp, and say, I'm not leaving from here because this is the way, I don't know, maybe that's not such a great place to stay for too long. So, there's more to talk about from this agenda setting perspective, and Noam Chomsky goes in to talk about propaganda. There's two kinds of propaganda. 20% of the population is propaganda. For 20% of the population, there's propaganda that's served to them for the intelligent, functioning members of society, the sort of political class. And then there's propaganda for the rest of the 80%, and that is the propaganda for the people that just don't really think too much and just listen and take orders and obey. And the bounding of the debate into like these certainty camps. They filter, they limit, and they frame everything, as I had said, in this particular way. And Noam Chomsky goes on to say, the New York Times doesn't report things to make history. The New York Times creates history. It shapes the perception of the world to please the policy of the political elite, agenda-setting corporate class. Propaganda for the smart people. And then he goes on to say, if the system functions well, it appears that it has a liberal bias, because that will serve and bond more effectively. If the liberal media is seen as taking on the system, then they get to create the boundaries of what taking on the system looks like, and they get to condition people to accept the voluntary acceptance of intellectual confinement. Like, how can I go beyond this? They already seem so extreme. Challenging that power. We must accept it in that way. The presuppositions of the liberal media are seen as sacrosanct, holier than thou, set in stone. That it's a given. That of course, good people are liberal people, period, right? Like, that's the conditioning. So Noam Chomsky goes on to say, they can't go beyond this. The media would say, like, this is the limit and go no further, right? So the borders and boundaries of allowable allowable play within this game that they set. They set the game, and they make the rules, and they condition us to accept that these are the only rules and that this is the only game in town. But there is more if you choose to explore. So, we need to break conventions, and we need to think critically, and we need to, think about things that operate outside the current framework. And the sort of defining characteristic that I want to espouse, or that I want to talk about, that I feel is so important, is I do not trust people with tremendous wealth, power, and influence. I don't trust the state. I don't trust the media. I don't trust the hospitals. I don't trust the scientists. I don't trust the experts. I don't trust the doctor. I don't trust them. And you could say, well, that's stupid, or that's foolish, or whatever. And it doesn't mean that I'm deliberately going to disobey. It doesn't mean I'm going to, shout other people down. It doesn't mean that I'm going to walk into a store and take my mask off and fart on it and throw it at someone. That's not what it means. It just means these are my beliefs. And the belief is that, look, how could we watch Brian Williams and listen to him when he was caught in a lie? How could we listen to any of these people, whether it's media people, politicians, Hollywood celebrities, whoever it is? Somebody is pulling their strings. Somebody is saying, don't say this, you'll get into trouble. Don't say that, blah, 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 blah. Oh, hey, if you donate to this charity, it'll look like you're a good person and you're supporting something good. And then, when people say that you're bad because of X, Y, Z, you could say, well, no, I'm a good person. See, I did all this stuff. I did all this work. I helped feed and clothe homeless people and blah, 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 blah. All right, great. But the people that routinely said, Saddam Hussein has weapons of mass destruction and the capabilities to use them, and he must be stopped. We know there's weapons of mass destruction. There's weapons of mass destruction. We have to go. And if anybody that is listening was alive to experience the fallout of 9/11, the Patriot Act, the war on terror, what's the terror alert today? Well, it feels like it's at a high level, but in reality, it's only 71 degrees. It's like they were using these charts that were like weather charts and like color codes. The reality creation machine is the system that holds all the money, all the power, all the wealth, all the resources. Okay, so what do we do, Mike? What do we do? Well, I don't know. Like, what can we do if not to try and do things in a different way? Understand the way that they do things. Understand what works about that. Understand the power of language, magic, creation, art, music. Understand the power of the what people respond to, our senses and the signals and the frequency. Nikola Tesla, if you want to understand the secrets of the universe, energy, frequency, vibration. So it's understanding that, but actually choosing not to like pick up the sword and fight, but to actually try and build bridges to create new ways. And if we can't build new bridges to create new ways, well, as Daniel Schmachtenberger says, we're probably just going to self-terminate. We're already operating within a self-terminating civilization, as we have exponential technology combined with rivalrous, cutthroat, competitive games that leads to kaboom. Just we're gone. And maybe if it doesn't lead to kaboom, we're gone in the sense that we're going to destroy the planet and everything's going to die. It leads to us adapting to the changing of the system. And if we have an ability to make a choice of what we want to adapt and change to, then I think that would be cool. It would be really cool if we could go in to the world of the psychedelic experience and bring that world into this world where those rules operate, like where we can bring the way in which time and space and the everything functions and operates and augments and transforms and mutates and changes and folds in on itself and expands and contracts and spins with amazing, ability, like and the sounds and the color. Like if we can extract that world and put it into this world, we change the code, we change the operating system, we change what is possible, we change the game, we change the borders and the boundaries, we dissolve the borders and the boundaries, which is what psychedelics do. And as I've said on the show before, by quieting the default mode network in our brain and starting to forge new neural pathways and connections and having different areas of the brain communicate with each other, that can happen on a societal level. And the default mode network is the programmed, coded system of operations that follows this sort of autopilot incentive structure of, crony, capitalist, consumer, acquisition, resource extraction. John Perkins calls it the death economy, right? Charles Eisenstein calls it the story of separation. I think Chris Ryan calls it I was about to say rich asshole syndrome. I mean, that's part of it. And then there's the NPP, the narrative of perpetual progress. It's like, what do we define what do we value? And everybody has to choose that for themselves. And it really does make a difference when we do have great leaders. It really does. But I would argue that no leader is a great leader who believes in war. No leader is a great leader who needs to rule over people by means of force and coercion. A great leader are the leaders that aren't in the political establishment. The great leaders that we all follow, I'm sure, are filmmakers, artists, authors, our parents, inventors, people that inspire us, that touch us, that speak to us, that make us move and change and give us something to hope and wish for, and something that touches us in a way that we say, I want to create, I want to be, I want to add to this wonderful human experiment of magic and love and create amazing things, or just be an amazing thing, right? Like some of the most amazing people in our lives aren't famous, aren't rich, It could just be mom, it could be your brother, it could be your sister. It could be your grandparent or aunt or uncle. It could be anybody in your life that has that just by the aura of their beingness affects you on some deep cellular level that you say, my God, this is just wonderful to be in the presence of this person because they carry themselves with such I was going to say positivity, but they carry themselves in such a different energetic frequency. They don't get trapped into the games. They don't respond and react out of hate and frustration and proving to be right and cleverness and trickery and deception and lies. They don't just start businesses so they can just make money. That there's some semblance of care. There's some semblance of honor, integrity, and respect and reverence and wisdom and espousing those things and embodying those things. Now those are leaders, not Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Donald Trump. These aren't leaders. These are psychopaths who are infected and deranged themselves because they are the very products of everything that these systems that support them. Well, everything that these systems and this culture has given birth to these symptoms. And this is where I talk about how a lot of these things are just symptoms of a greater problem. But we do live in such a wonderful world. And who is it? Arthur C. Clarke, I think, that said that any advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Any advanced technology seems like it's magic, like it's indistinguishable from magic. I have trouble with that word. And it's true, right? Like, I don't know how, I don't know how a lot of things work. I don't know how a lot of things operate, but I'm happy that they do. I'm happy that I'm able to talk into this microphone and it's able to reach you. I mean, it's magic. And, that I think that really by like being open to that and tapping into the magic that's all around us, that we can actually begin to channel more of this loving, positive, creative, playful, and flowy energy. Because when we buy in, when we participate into any particular kind of story or narrative, and we attach and we accept, maybe blindly accept or tacitly accept as just acquiescing to the, oh, okay, I guess that's the way it is. Well, we're immediately writing a ticket to our own sort of servitude in a small way. But I'm completely fine with that in certain things, right? Like, I'm completely fine with accepting that, that I use my cell phone, and I don't know, maybe it's not good for me, or maybe it is. Maybe there's I don't know. We can't all be investigative journalists and get to the bottom of every single issue. And we're never going to have a mass media system that just tells us the truth. So it's this game of like figuring it out for ourselves. But in the game of figuring it out for ourselves, we can't be allowed to be whipped up, stirred up, and pushed into the divide and conquer strategy. We can't turn on each other, because each other is really where we need to come together, because there are more human people who don't want to enter into the game of dominating and controlling others, and who just want to have a good life and enjoy it and love it. And if we start feeding that garden and planting seeds in that realm and watering those plants and growing those trees, we're going to have a pretty lush environment, a pretty rich, deep, healthy soil and plant and bees, and we're going to have a great atmosphere, a great environment, a wonderful terrain to play in. And so that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to do more of playing in the garden than, scuba diving in hell. Even though sometimes it's cool to scuba dive in hell. It's like, geez, what's going on in hell? Let me go check it out. And then I could come back and say, hey, you guys wouldn't believe what's going on down there. But there's no need for me to spread that and infect that with a warlike mentality or a crusading-like mentality. So I don't know. I think that's all I got for today. I guess, this came from, like, some people wanting to know, like, what I think about the election or what I think about things or whatever. And it's like, who cares? Like, it's up to us. We get to decide what the now and the future holds for us. If we're willing to go down a road of obedience, I don't know, what's that going to look like? Like, we'll see. Maybe it will be this, who knows? Maybe we'll all be in FEMA camps and, being injected with like mind altering, nanotech, genetically modifying vaccine things or whatever. I don't know. What's the worst that's going to happen? I mean, so what? This is where I totally discredit the entire podcast. But really, though, at the end of the day, what matters more? Fighting the war against the maniacal, malevolent, mega monopoly, monolithic Leviathan creature from Jekyll Island, fucking, Thanos with all the Infinity Stones, and there are no Avengers. There are no people that are going to fight that in a physical sense and like bring it down. And even when we use the sort of like, even when we use that sort of charge, that war charge, that fight charge in, social media or like interactions with people or, arguing or this kind of thing, we're still not feeding what so desperately needs to be fed. So I think that the way that it works out is just that everybody tries to operate from a place of respect, reverence, compassion, peace, and honesty, and standing firm in your integrity without being aggressive or hostile to others who you might think or I might think are sheep or not thinking critically or dumb or stupid. Because whenever we throw those things out there like that, we're just being lazy and summarizing an entire history, entire decades of a person with an infinite number of experiences and thoughts and data, flowing through them that we dismiss and we think we're better or that we know. And maybe we do. Maybe we have a good inkling, but maybe there's a piece of the puzzle that they can contribute to. Maybe they're willing to join in and see what we see. But how do we open it up? How do we communicate it? How do we send the invitations? You're having a wedding. You want people to come. You want to send beautiful invitations to people. You're not going to just yell at people to tell, come to me, but my wedding's going to be fucking awesome. You better be there, you piece of shit. It's like, all right, maybe I won't go. I don't know. Why are you yelling at me? So to conclude this podcast, to wrap things up, another thing is we got to laugh. We got to laugh. We got to have a sense of humor as well, right? I had this like just funny thought of like some guys like coming into my house to try and rob my house, and me just being like, yeah, sure, take whatever you want. I don't care. Like, make yourself go nuts. Like, just calm and like that I think in and of itself is a sort of like Jedi mind trick, like a magic trick. Whether it works or not, it's just embodying that attitude of like, yeah, you want to like, I don't know, you want to like hurt me, torture me, kill me, kidnap me, take my things. Like, I don't know, man. Like that's on you. Like that's like a problem that you have. There's something wrong with the source code that you're operating with. And and again, this is not to say that like if I was in a situation I wouldn't like defend myself or my family or something, but the idea of like somebody who is filled with such hate, such rage, such that wants to steal, that wants to hurt, that wants to maim, that wants to control, that wants to deceive, that wants to take your money, whatever. It's like there's a lot of suffering and pain and hurt in that person. And I don't know, I think I've been in situations like this before, but not on such a grand scale, where my reaction was just Actually, it did happen. It happened on YouTube once where someone was criticizing a YouTube video and they're like, you're stupid, you're an idiot, like piece of shit, or whatever. And my reply was like, hey, thanks. I appreciate the constructive criticism. I'm always willing to listen to feedback, and, you know, a little sarcastic, but I did open up the conversation. I didn't take it as a I didn't take I didn't bite the hook, as Pema Chodron would say. Like, don't bite the hook. Don't get wrapped up in somebody else's projections, somebody else's worldviews. And that doesn't mean completely like invalidate it or shut it down as not being true or assuming that you know where they're coming from, but just diffuse it. Diffuse it with a different tactic, with a different way, with an approach that they, in a million years, they wouldn't have expected. And that then opens up opportunities, maybe not now, but maybe in the future. Maybe it's like chipping away at a sculpture like Michelangelo's David. He didn't just make that like overnight. It was a chisel. It was chipping away, chipping away, chipping away, chipping away, chipping away. Inviting in, inviting in, inviting in. Come in, sending invitations. Come out and play. So, you know, there are a lot of big things that are happening in the world. There are a lot of powerful people that are shaping it, wanting to, and quite frankly, with a lot of success, shaping the narrative of our reality. And we don't have to bite the hook, and we don't have to fight their war, and we don't have to allow ourselves to become emotionally, spiritually, psychically invested in their stories. And, you know, we need each other, and we need to talk to each other, and we need to see each other, and we need to hug each other, and we need to dance next to each other, and we need to smile at each other, and we need to believe in love and magic, and we need to believe in the light, and we need to believe that this never ends, that we are living in infinity. Eternity is here. And the same stories can play out over and over again, and we can repeat history, or we could do something fucking totally different. Totally different. And this process is a slow process of unfolding, unraveling, you know, deconditioning, deprogramming, to finding out who are you? Who am I? Why do I believe what I believe? Why do I see what I see? Why do I trust who I trust? Can I actually think critically and come to my own conclusions while also respecting objective realities and truths? Is there room for my subjective reality creation to operate within the objective? Of course. And as far as what's going to happen, only time will tell. It's going to be hard to see, but I do believe that we are in a holy war. We are in the new crusades. The way that people attach to politics, political parties, conspiracies, and all kinds of other, even psychedelics, the way in which we devote ourselves with such a stranglehold on the thing, the attachment, the camp, the belief that we are in this sort of competing, you know, fragmented, multiple reality, holy war crusade. And, yeah, there's no such thing as death, and we live as much as we live. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens, but whatever happens, it's, you know, don't let these finite games infect you so much, because we are infinite.
Buy Sheath Underwear. It's really comfortable. Use the promo code mikeadelic. Get 20% off. They're really good underwear. They're if you need underwear, they're great. Go to sheathunderwear.com. Mikeadelic, 20% off. And yeah, I love you all. Bye.
Hey, thanks for tuning into the show. Hope you guys enjoyed that episode as much as I did. All the links are in the show notes, show description. And to support Mikeadelic, you can leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. You can become a patron and get access to all kinds of bonuses like the private Mikeadelic Inner Sanctum Discord chat group, bonus episodes, more goodies, merch, things of that nature. And check out our sponsors, SHEATHunderwear.com. Go to SHEATHunderwear.com. Put in the code mikeadelic. Get 20% off everything at SHEATHunderwear.com. It's awesome underwear. Go check it out. And check out Student Loan Tutor. Schedule a free evaluation. StudentLoanTutor.com. Tell them I sent you there. Thank you so much, all of you, to everybody who supports this show. Thank you for all the love and support, all the kind words. This show wouldn't be possible without you. You know who you are, and you know what to do if you love things. Tell people about it, share it, like it, subscribe, and stay tuned for more awesome episodes like this. Shout out to Danny Barnett and Galaxia for the intro and outro songs. And of course, to all you out there, much love. Peace.